You like it? It's a picture frame. Costs $1 at the Goodwill.
Good morning. It is Sunday, September 26th, 2021, and this is my weekly wrap-up. I had a breakthrough with writing structure this week. One of the problems I found plaguing my writing is a lack of emotional depth. I put a lot of energy into the plots, but despite intending to include the emotional arc of the protagonist and all that emotional depth, somehow it always falls flat. So I realized this week that I was just using the wrong template. I found one from a popular cartoon, Rick and Morty, and it was an exciting journey of discovery, and I'll share more about that after the accomplishments review. So let's see, further accomplishments. I published the Asterisk on my Instagram and website. It's a story about a software engineer tasked with building the most innovative intelligence in the universe, and the trick he pulls to get it to work. I provided a link in the show notes if you'd like to read it yourself. I also completed my 2 school classes, which focus on plot and characters, and I'll share more about them as the content comes up. And finally, I prepared a few story ideas for writing next week and expect to write a few more flash fiction to keep practicing on plot and characters. So with that said, ensuring emotional depth in plots. So, like I mentioned earlier, one of the issues I've struggled with is my ability to emotionally connect with my characters. In my recent stories, and in any of my larger, more complex stories, I have gotten consistent feedback, and that is, we don't really understand your characters. I'd talk with family and friends, and I'd get initial feedback, something like, good story, I like the ending. But when I dig in a bit about the characters and the overall emotional arc, they had little to say. In fact, in some instances, I think my writing was so poor that some folks weren't even sure which characters were which. Oof, right? That's rough feedback, but incredibly valuable. So these past few weeks, I've really been focused on finding that missing link. What am I missing? Why can't I? Even though I'm aware that I need to add more emotion, what is stopping me? So if you've been following me a while, you'll know that I've been using lots of books and courses to help guide my journey on writing. One of the first I found was StoryGrid, a logic-driven model written by a former editor. I also used the Save the Cat beat sheets and what's known as the 5 Commandments in writing, the inciting incident, complication, crisis, climax, resolution. That's a model for scene and story writing. And these models are all wonderful and have taught me endless details about story writing and the hidden story structure behind the craft, right? Like, I use these every day and they are important. However, they're also very plot-driven models, right? In Tuesday's entry, a couple days ago, I talked a bit about plot and story. We want a logical plot that's filled with sequential events like Bob went to the truck, Bob came back from the truck, Bob smashed the door with the axe from his truck. And we also want a story with lots of emotions, like Bob slammed the door shut with a thud. Bob clutched the axe with white knuckles. As it turns out, the models I'd been using were mostly teaching me plot. So I do want to be clear that I'm not saying these models don't teach that emotional side. I'm simply saying that for me, I wasn't able to learn the emotional side from them. I needed a new model. Enter Rick and Morty. If you're not familiar, Rick and Morty is a very off-kilter comedy cartoon that airs on Adult Swim. It basically started out as Back to the Future fanfic and has the sole purpose of rejecting everything about storytelling. Yet Dan Harmon, the writer and co-creator of Rick and Morty, has a very good writing model that he shared with folks that speaks directly, in my opinion, to the emotional side of things.
You've got a character that you can identify with that has some kind of need, wish, incompletion, causes them to go across a threshold where the story changes direction. They go down a road of trials, searching for something. They find it, whether they like it or not. It kind of kicks their ass, and they come back to the world they started in, having changed.
So in essence, he puts the plot in the eyes of the protagonist, right, when he's plotting it out. Instead of saying there is an inciting incident, which is very plot focused, this model focuses on the protagonist. And the exciting part for me is that it sort of provides a starting line. It's a way to build out a skeleton of the story using the emotional arc first, and then you can tack on all the plot bits from the Save the Cat beat sheet or from StoryGrid. You can tack all those on later once you've established that core skeleton of emotion, right? Once you've got that. You can add in your locks and keys, your climaxes, your crises, all of that, so long as it fits into that story arc. So maybe this is one of those things you learn in Writing School 101, but for me, it was a long slog to sort out, so I thought it'd be worth sharing. I am curious, is finding the emotional core of your story something that you have struggled with in your own writing? If so, I genuinely would like to hear about it, what it was and how you overcame it. It would help me quite a bit. Now on to next week. For concrete goals this week, they are to finish on The Green Grocer, produce one new flash fiction, and replot The Conflagration. So just those 3 things, but they're pretty big things. For stretch goals, I'd like to learn more about typography so I can integrate it into my Instagram and my YouTube videos, as well as put together my list of works, which was on a list several weeks ago and I never got to it, so I'm making sure I bring it back to the front burner. Anyway, I guess that's it for the day. Have a great day and a great week. See you, everybody.